Hi guys, this is the wind from the north, delivered to you straight from a Russian train heading to Moscow. My main focus in this video will be on traditional Russian culture. So besides the train, which is obviously not old, as you can see, you will also see many old buildings and objects. We will visit inside of Russian temples, some monasteries, art galleries, and even restaurants. Just for your information, train is a very reliable means of transport here in Russia. And I always take a train when I'm going to visit Moscow because it's fast, clean, and comfortable. Speaking of restaurants, we will start with the restaurant car of this double-decker train. It serves simple food that Russians cook at home usually. And I have to say that in general, most of Russians take food with them from home when they go on a long trip like this one, which is like 16 hours. This is probably the reason why the restaurant is so empty, or maybe it's the prices. So let's check on the menu and the money they want for the service. For my dinner, I chose the vinaigrette, the salad based on beets and sauerkraut, and also some chicken with baked potatoes and mushrooms. It all looked about the same as in the average Russian kitchen, and it tasted pretty familiar too. The potatoes were a little bit dry, so I washed them with cranberry morse, and I paid over 700 rubles for everything, which is absolutely not cheap, I would say. As a tablecloth, I had a story of the evolution of the restaurant cars in a Russian train, and from that one I learned that there is now set a bar on the first floor where you can drink some strong alcoholic beverages, and on top of that there has always been a free access to boiling water in each car, because Russians are crazy about drinking tea, especially on a train trip. Now let's have some quick look at the compartment itself. It's not first class, obviously, and it's a total mess after an overnight trip. But it's okay, pretty comfortable, good mattress, good night's sleep. And it's time to walk around Moscow now. We rented a small apartment in a lovely old district of Moscow, not far from this monastery, which was founded in 1490. At the beginning of the 17th century, this very monastery withstood a siege by Polish troops. So around its walls, the Russian militia in 1612 was preparing for the final liberation of Moscow from the Polish-Lithuanian invaders. You know it or not, but Russia has a long and very complicated history of relations with its Polish and Lithuanian neighbors. Unfortunately, the main stone cathedral of the monastery, which was built in 1494, at the time of our visit was under the reconstruction, so we were not allowed to film inside. But what we knew is that for the Romanov dynasty, this monastery was a special place because it has always been their family vault. So many tsars were buried just somewhere very close here. After that, we went to the famous Sergius gallery to enjoy the old Russian art, because this gallery has the greatest collections of old Russian icons. So the oldest one, just right in front of us, it dates back to the beginning of the 12th century. One of the most powerful to me. Almost all of these icons are painted on wood, and I'm not an expert really, but like visually I can see this difference between Slavic icons, like Orthodox icons, and Catholic icons in Western countries. If you know what is the specific difference between Orthodox and Catholic icons, please write something in the comments. I'm really interested in your opinion on that topic. What I know about old Russian icons and modern ones as well is that while painting them, the master should follow some very strict canons. Thus, icons in Russian culture are not considered as paintings, not portraits. They are simply and solely objects of worship. But to me, they do look like some wonderful illustrations to children's books on biblical stories. A few more beautiful seconds of Russian icons, and we will find ourselves in a hall dedicated to one of the strongest Russian saints, Sergius of Radonezh. This person is recognized as the spiritual gatherer of the Russian people. He is associated with the cultural ideal of Holy Russia and the emergence of Russian spiritual culture and Russian culture in general. So this person is called the guardian angel of Russia. And very soon we're going to go to a place that is considered miraculous. Some mystics worldwide call this place the 13th chakra of the earth, and this place is directly connected with Sergius, for it was the place where an angel appeared to him and called him to serve God, and there he began to perform his miracles. And here it is, this special sacred place, the Holy Trinity Saint Sergius Lavra. What is Lavra? Originally, this term referred to parts of a city or individual settlements enclosed by a fence or a wall. So we can see the walls over there. Monasteries began to be called lavras in the 6th century in Palestine, where monks were forced to gather in as large numbers as possible and enclose their dwellings with walls to protect them from attacks by nomad tribes. Now I'm gonna give you a little tour into the history of ancient Russia. So this very Lavra arose on the site where in 1337 Saint Sergius settled with his brother, and together they built the first wooden church of Trinity. And it is said that Saint Sergius was able to heal blindness. He gave sight to the blind with only one touch of his hand, and he healed the feeble, the lame, and the dumb. So I believe all religious traditions have such saints who do good and bring healing to the sick. On top of that, Sergius was known to be gifted the gift of foresight. So with time, His fame traveled over, and other monks began to settle around his cell, and very soon this Trinity Monastery became the spiritual center of the Russian lands. It supported the Moscow princes. Maybe you know that there were times in Russia when it was under the power of Mongol Tatar Khanate. So Russian princes were subject to the Mongol Khans. In 1380, Saint Sergei blessed the army of the Russian prince in battle with the great Mongol Khan Mamai. And during that battle, Sergei and his monks, in their prayers, were asking God to grant victory to the Russian army. And so it happened. So the Russian army won, and this victory was the beginning of the rise of Russia's liberation from the Mongol yoke and the rebirth of the Russian state. So this is why this Saint Sergei is so revered by Russian people, and every day there are lines of people, you can see them. These people want to touch the relics which are kept in that church. Of all the temples built at those times, nothing has survived. Now we're in the oldest temple built after the death of Sergei. It dates from 1422. Unfortunately, as you could see, many temples at the time of our visit were under reconstruction, so therefore I can only show you the beauties from the inside. Another church I wanted to show you from the inside is this refectory church. It's built in 1686 and was intended for the solemn receptions and all types of festive meals. It is built in the Russian version of one of the greatest European styles, the Baroque. Hence all these over-decorated frescoes. Just enjoy the view. All this chaotic movement of crowds of people through the church is only possible when there's no service going on. During the service, everyone stands in silence and stillness. And unlike, say, Catholic Christian churches, Russian ones have no benches to sit on, as you can see. So imagine what kind of stamina one must have in order to endure an all-night service during, say, Easter, for example. We didn't get to any services this day. Instead, we decided to have some lunch at a place whose menu is based on a 200-year-old Russian cookbook. That's the place and the museum combined. So this small cafe recreates the atmosphere of the Russian Empire of the 19th century, with all these waiters dressed in the 19th century dresses, having the corresponding hairstyle and stuff. A very cozy place, delicious food. And a 3-course lunch, which we absolutely adored. cost us 1,000 rubles per person. Now let's take a little walk through the streets of this provincial town that grew up around Lavra. As you understand, this is not Moscow, it's a town something like 73 kilometers away from Moscow. And this whole place consists of such private houses built to the taste and purse of their owners, and usually surrounded by huge fences. So here we are again in Moscow. It's one of the coziest places in the city. On the one side there are churches from the 16th century, and on the other there is a modern park with a beautiful world-class concert hall. These white buildings with two towers on top is the Old English Court. It's one of the oldest buildings in Moscow, so we decided to enter it and explore. From the inside, it consists of about 4 small rooms, which will inform you about the history of trade between Russia and Britain. So we had to negotiate a couple of very steep and narrow staircases. Also, the doorways to each room are very low. Other than that, it's a proper place to feel the spice of the centuries. These old chambers were erected at the beginning of the 16th century, and they are historically very closely connected with the beginning and formation of Russian-English relationships, which flourished during the reign of our famous, notorious Tsar Ivan IV the Terrible and Queen Elizabeth I. In these recreated interiors, you can see copies of old books and documents, as well as the reconstruction of household items that accompanied Englishmen during their travels in Russia and in dangerous sea expeditions that actually brought the two powerful countries, Russia and England, together during the Age of Discovery. Well, this concludes our little journey into the history of Russia. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you very soon in the next videos. Thank you for watching.